January 13th, 2006. Just past midday. Acasuso, an upper-middle-class neighborhood of Buenos Aires. Friday. Inside the Banco Rio de la Plata branch on Avenida Libertador and Calle Peru, 18 customers are waiting. A woman counts pesos at the teller's window. A teenage boy plays with the strap of a backpack. The air conditioning rattles. Outside, one of the bank's two security guards is finishing a cigarette and a black coffee from the kiosk across the street. The other is shaking hands with a man in a courier's cap who has just walked through the front doors holding what looks like a heavy parcel. The handshake lasts 1 second longer than a handshake should. Then the courier's other hand comes up, and there is a pistol in it. 5 men move at once. They have come in coordinated entry at the same moment, fanning out across the lobby before anyone behind the counter has time to react. They wear cheap suits and false beards. Their pistols are blue, polished, almost too clean. One of them is small and thin and walks like a dancer rehearsing the room. He moves to the center of the marble floor and lifts both arms slowly, as if he were calming a crowd at a small theater. He tells the customers, in a soft, almost apologetic voice, that nobody will be hurt today. He says, please, sit on the floor. He says he is sorry about the inconvenience. What happens next becomes the most successful bank robbery in Argentinian history. Hours later, when the elite Halcón tactical unit of the Bonaerense Provincial Police finally storms the building, they find no robbers, no money, no tunnel, only the 18 unheard hostages, several replica pistols on the carpet, and a single line of black paint on the back wall of the vault. They will spend months looking for a getaway car. There was no getaway car. They will spend the rest of the year looking for the missing millions in cash. Then, only weeks after the robbery, one angry wife picks up a telephone. How did a 43-year-old plastic artist and karate instructor outplan 400 armed officers? And why did he refuse to leave the vault until every other man on his crew had already crawled out? The small man with the soft voice is Fernando Araujo, 43 years old. Born in 1962 in San Isidro, north of Buenos Aires, the kind of suburb where the houses have iron gates and the dogs are large and bored. By his own later interviews, he had spent his adult life in 2 trades. He kept an atelier as a visual artist, drawings, mixed media pieces, and he taught karate and jiu-jitsu in a small studio above a hardware shop. The 2 trades, on paper, paid the rent. What he could do beyond that was draw a building from memory after walking through it once. What he could do was sit in a coffee shop and sketch a room from a single angle and then redraw it from every other angle without going back. That ordinary skill, the visual artist's habit of seeing a space as a series of panels, is what built the tunnel. In his back pocket, the morning of the robbery, Fernando Araujo has a folded sheet of paper. It is a hand-drawn diagram. 18 meters, 3 turns, 1 reinforced concrete wall, marked with a single small X. The diagram is creased from 11 months of unfolding and refolding. It will end up, that afternoon, taped to the inside of the cardboard pizza box he carries out through the sewer. But right now, standing in the center of the marble floor with both his arms raised, Fernando Araujo does not know whether the wall behind the vault is exactly where he drew it. He does not know whether the foam panel he and his partners have spent 4 nights cutting from the back will give way at the first touch, or whether it will catch on a hidden rebar he did not measure. He does not know, yet, that this will become the largest single haul of safe deposit box contents in Argentinian history. He only knows one thing. The clock has started. They have a few hours at best until the police lose patience. And every minute the police take to surround the building outside is 1 more minute his partners need to dig. Behind the marble counter, the branch manager is already pressing the silent alarm under his desk. Araujo notices the movement of the man's left wrist without seeming to look at it. He nods, almost pleased. He counted on the alarm being pressed quickly. The first patrol car will arrive within minutes. The cordon will close around the building inside half an hour. By then, the foam panel at the back of the vault will already be lying on the tunnel floor, and the first cardboard box will already be on its way down a sloped pipe into the storm drain that runs under Avenida Libertador and out to the Rio de la Plata. The negotiator does not know yet that he is not negotiating with anyone. The hostages do not know yet that they are not really hostages. They are the audience for a piece of theater that has been written and rehearsed for almost a year, and the curtain has just gone up. In 11 months, Fernando Araujo will walk into this branch through a fake courier's uniform with a replica gun in his pocket and a pizza delivery phone number in his head. But first, he has to convince a small group of professional thieves, men who have spent their adult lives in real prisons with real bullets, that a plastic artist who has never carried a real weapon in his life is the man they should follow into a vault. February 2005. A small kitchen in San Isidro. A man stands at the counter with a roll of dental floss in his hand. He is unwinding it with the same patience he once used to ink the borders of a comic book panel. He ties one end of the floss to a small lead fishing sinker, weighs it in his palm, and lets it dangle. The sinker swings slowly. He watches it the way some men watch a clock. This is how Fernando Araujo measures the thickness of the wall of a bank vault from the inside of a safe deposit box. He cannot drill. He cannot tap with anything that makes a sound. He cannot bring in a metal detector. But he can rent a safe deposit box for 2,000 pesos a year, walk into the room reserved for private clients, close the small curtain behind him, open his box, and quietly drop a weighted line out the back of it for as long as he likes. Whatever distance the sinker falls before it stops is the depth of the air gap between the steel back wall of the box and the reinforced concrete of the vault's outer skin. He repeats the measurement many times over several months, from boxes in 3 different rows. Most of the numbers cluster within a centimeter of each other. One number stands out by closer to 10. The outlier is the southern wall, the one closest to the sewer. That is where the tunnel will hit. He is not the first man to think of robbing the Acasuso branch. Argentinian police interviews from later that year suggest that at least 2 other crews had walked into the building over the previous decade and walked back out without trying. The branch's reputation in Buenos Aires criminal circles was the reputation of a vault that could not be cracked from inside the bank, because the police response time on Avenida Libertador was under 4 minutes. Whatever you took, you could not carry out the front. Sources differ on the exact day the idea came to Araujo. By his own later account, given in the course of the Argentinian proceedings, the thought arrived while he was sitting in a corner table at a cafe on Calle Peru, watching a maintenance crew climb out of a manhole at the curb. The men were arguing about whether to break for lunch. One of them was wiping mud off his arms with a rag. Behind him, just 3 meters away, the back wall of the Banco Rio branch ran flush with the pavement. Whatever you took, you could not carry it out the front. But there was a back, and there was, evidently, a way underneath the back. Araujo is not, on his own, capable of robbing this building. He knows it. The man who knows it best is the man who looks at himself every morning in a small kitchen mirror in a small flat in San Isidro and sees the same flat shoulders and soft hands of a man who has spent his adult life holding pencils. What he needs is a crew. What he needs is at least one mind that has done this kind of work before and survived. He finds Luis Mario Vitet Selanes through a friend of a friend. Vitet is a Uruguayan, 47 years old at the time, with a face like a worn courtroom drawing and a voice that has been to prison more than once on 2 continents. The 2 men meet in a parrilla in Belgrano. Vitet listens without interrupting for 40 minutes. When Araujo finishes, Vitet asks one question. He asks where the sewer comes out. Araujo unfolds a Buenos Aires city engineer's map across the table and points. The pipe runs 18 meters from the back wall of the vault into the storm drain under Avenida Libertador, and from there, 16 kilometers to the river. Vitet is quiet for a long time. Then he says he is in. There are 5 of them in the end. Vitet will be the frontman inside the branch, the negotiator's voice on the telephone, the one with the false beard and the dancer's calm. A second professional, a man whom the Argentinian press would later call Beto de la Torre, comes in as the strong-arm reserve, the man who will sit on the floor with the hostages and keep the room from turning. Sebastián Garcia Bolster is the technician. He is an electronic technician who runs a small boat and engine repair workshop near the river. nicknamed in the press later simply El Ingeniero, the engineer, and he has no criminal record at all when Araujo approaches him. He agrees to help on the explicit condition that he will not enter the bank. He will be in the tunnel, at the far end, on a small craft moving boxes toward the river. The fifth is a younger man, identified later only as Julian, who handles the surface vehicle and the radio. Through the spring of 2005 and the long, mild Buenos Aires winter that follows, the five of them rent a small garage 2 blocks from the branch. The garage cover story is that they are renovating an old bakery for resale. They tell the landlord they are putting in a new oven, and they make sure to leave bags of cement and unopened tiles where they can be seen from the door. What they are actually doing is cutting downward through the concrete floor and then turning, slowly, eastward, toward the bank. They work nights. They wrap the chisels in cloth. They carry the broken concrete out in cardboard pizza boxes from a real pizzeria they buy from, in small quantities, so the volume of waste never raises questions with the rubbish collectors. The pizza boxes are Araujo's idea. He likes the idea that the same shape will carry the concrete out of the tunnel one direction and the gold and dollars out the other. How long is the tunnel by the time they reach the wall? The honest answer is that nobody outside the gang ever measured it. Estimates in the Argentinian prosecution range from 18 to 30 meters. The lawyer for one of the defendants later told a Buenos Aires Daily that the real length was closer to 40 because the route doglegs twice to avoid an old gas line. What is certain is that Sebastian Garcia Bolster, the workshop technician, designed a wheeled foam and clay panel that fits the inside diameter of the storm drain exactly, and that the tunnel route was tested with that panel 6 times in the 3 weeks before the heist, in the small hours of the morning before the sewer crews started their day. In November 2005, Araujo does the thing that most professional robbers and his crew warn him against. He walks into the Acasuso branch in broad daylight, dressed as an ordinary customer, and opens a savings account with $300 and a forged Uruguayan passport. He sits in the lobby for 45 minutes, ostensibly waiting for a manager's signature on his account paperwork. He counts the cameras. He counts the staff. He times the response of the 2 security guards. He listens to one elderly woman at the teller's window count 2,000 pesos out of her savings, while her teenage son fidgets with a backpack strap. And to the teller behind the counter, tell her gently that, yes, the kiosk across the street will give her a better rate today on the dollar. Araujo will tell a journalist 4 years later that this was the moment he decided not to touch the teller's drawers. The cash on the floor of the branch belonged, in his understanding, to people like the woman with the 2,000 pesos. The contents of the safe deposit boxes in the basement belonged to a different category of person. The kind, he said, who do not keep their savings at the front counter. By his own account, he was not a Robin Hood. He was a man who simply did not want to share a country afterwards with the woman who would lose her 2,000 pesos because of him. The distinction is small. It is also, on the morning of January 13th, the entire frame inside which he will operate. By Christmas of 2005, the tunnel is finished. The foam panel is in place against the back wall of the vault, held by a thin clay seal that will be cut from the inside. 18 meters of tube, ventilated, lit, lined with the trolley rails of an industrial garden cart. A rehearsal is held one night in the last week of December. Vitet times the run from the vault back wall to the storm drain exit at a little over 4 minutes, carrying a cardboard pizza box, loaded to about 15 kilograms. Before we walk into the branch with them on Friday the 13th, a small thing. If a story like this is the kind you want to keep finding, subscribe to the channel. It helps the next one surface. Now the doors of the Acasuso branch are about to open. It is the lunch hour, and Fernando Araujo is standing on the pavement with a clipboard under one arm and a courier's cap pulled low, watching the second hand on his wristwatch move toward the hour. At the chosen minute, by his own count, he and 4 other men will walk in. 11 months of measurement, of tunnel, of dental floss, of careful refusal to touch the teller's drawers are about to be put against a clock that will not pause for anybody. The negotiator is already on his way from a police station to the south. The Bonaerense will arrive within the half hour. Can a plastic artist with a foam panel and a wheeled cart really walk out of a Buenos Aires bank vault with the contents of 143 safe deposit boxes? And once the police cordon is closed around the building, where do 5 men and a heavy haul of gold and dollars actually go? The little bell over the door of the Banco Rio branch sounds shortly after midday. It is the same chime an old grocer's door makes. By the time the bell has finished ringing, Vitet Solanes is in the center of the marble floor, with his arms raised and his soft voice asking everyone, very politely, to sit on the ground. The first call to the Bonaerense provincial police is logged within minutes. By the half hour, a single patrol car is stopped at the corner of Avenida Libertador and Calle Peru. The chief negotiator, named in the case files as Miguel Sileo of the provincial police, is on a portable loudspeaker on the pavement outside before the first hour is out. By the second hour, the cordon is closed. Police snipers are on the roofs of the buildings opposite. The branch's 2 entrances are watched by 20 officers each. The side service door is sealed. The Argentinian hostage negotiation doctrine of 2006 holds that nobody enters a building under active siege until either contact with the robbers has been broken for more than half an hour, or the building's perimeter is 100% confirmed sealed against escape. Both conditions are watched, that afternoon, by the most senior officers in the province. What no inspector outside the branch knows is that the building's perimeter has had a hole in it for 19 days. The foam panel at the back of the vault is already moving. Inside the branch, Araujo has slipped down the basement stairs while Vitet holds the room above. The vault door, normally controlled by a time lock from the branch manager's desk, has been opened by the manager himself, who has been told, with a soft apology, that nothing will be taken from the front counter and that everyone will go home tonight. The manager is a man approaching retirement. He believes Araujo. It is a small thing. A robbery of this size depends in the end on which one human being decides to believe which other human being. Inside the vault, Araujo presses the heel of his hand against the foam and clay seal in the back wall. The seal gives. The panel falls inward into the tunnel with a soft, dry sound. The same sound the lead sinker made when it hit the bottom of the safe deposit box in February of the previous year. Araujo allows himself, for the first time, one short laugh. The wall is exactly where he drew it. 11 months of measurement, of patience, of refusing to drill, reduced to 1 centimeter of error. Garcia Bolster is already in the tunnel. He has arrived from the storm drain end with the wheeled cart and 4 collapsed cardboard pizza boxes. The drill they used to open the safe deposit boxes is electric, battery-powered, German, and quiet in the way that only expensive tools are quiet. They begin with the bottom row of boxes on the western wall and work upward. Araujo has decided in advance which boxes to skip. Anything labeled with the name of a small church, anything in a box rented in a single woman's name with a low fee plan, anything that, in his estimation, belongs to a person who would notice the loss for a generation. He skips 11 boxes. The Argentinian prosecution will later list those skipped boxes as evidence of the gang's calculation. Araujo, in his court statement, will call it something else. Outside, on the pavement, Sileo has been speaking through the loudspeaker for the better part of an hour. The man inside answers in fragments, short phrases, the soft Uruguayan accent of Vitet, putting on the worn voice of a desperate Argentinian. The negotiator's transcripts, released years later, show a conversation that lingers on small grievances. The robber complains about the cost of rent in Buenos Aires. The robber asks whether the police have eaten lunch. The robber, at some point that afternoon, asks whether somebody could send in pizza. Several pizzas, he specifies. Mozzarella, large, no anchovies. He gives the negotiator the telephone number of a delivery service near the branch. The pizzas arrive at the curb. The negotiator's team opens each box, scans for weapons, finds only pizza. The boxes are taken inside the branch. The negotiator notes, in his log, that the robbers seem unusually pleased about the food. He does not yet know that the gang is, at that moment, slowly moving the contents of the safe deposit boxes into the empty pizza boxes 1 floor below him. A second set of cardboard containers, the exact dimensions of the ones in the tunnel. Boxes that are official, recognizable, identical to the kind being thrown away in the rubbish bins of every cafe on Avenida Libertador. By late in the afternoon, 143 boxes have been emptied. Estimates of the haul disagree. Banco Rio's declared losses, in the days after the robbery, came to a fraction of what the prosecution later believed the gang actually carried out. Estimates from the public reporting and the court filings range from roughly 8 to 25 million United States dollars in cash, gold, and jewelry. The spread is wide because most boxes were rented privately, and the contents had never been declared to the bank. The lawyer for one of the defendants would, years later, tell a Buenos Aires daily that the gang's own informal count, written on a slip of paper that was never recovered, came to closer to $20 million in cash alone. Take an average. It does not change what they did with the figure once they had it. Later in the afternoon, Garcia Bolster fires a small petrol engine deep inside the storm drain. The craft he uses to carry the boxes is small, two-stroke, designed for shallow water. But inside the concrete tube, it sounds like an aeroplane. The first stack of pizza boxes goes on a platform behind him. He starts the long, low ride toward the Rio de la Plata. 16 kilometers of storm drain in absolute darkness. A man on a small watercraft in a tunnel barely wider than his shoulders. Araujo stays. The plan, written 6 months earlier, called for him to be the second man out, behind Vitet. Vitet is the easiest to identify by the negotiators' cameras and the easiest to lose in the city after. Araujo, the plastic artist with no record, is the safer one to leave behind on the surface as a decoy. But when the last cardboard box is loaded, 2 of the crew are still in the tunnel, checking that the false floor, the one that police underwater search teams will not find, is properly seated. Araujo waves Vitet out. He tells him to go first. He tells the others, very calmly, that he will not leave until every box and every man is past the false floor. There is no audience for this beat of the story. The hostages on the floor of the branch above do not see it. The police on the pavement do not see it. The negotiator does not see it. The branch manager, who will tell investigators afterwards that the small, soft-spoken robber was the polite one, does not see it. What Fernando Araujo does, in the last 6 minutes of the heist, is wait at the entrance to the tunnel for 3 men he has spent 11 months persuading to trust him. He counts them out. He goes last. Through 18 meters of low concrete tube, on his stomach for the first 3, on a wheeled cart for the next 12, on his feet for the final 3. Toward the end of the day, the Acasuso branch falls silent. The negotiators' loudspeakers met by no answer. When the Bonaerense breach team finally enters through the front door, hours later than the day began, they find the 18 unhurt hostages, several replica pistols on the carpet, and a vault standing open with 143 safe deposit boxes ripped from the wall. They find a small wheeled cart at the rear of the vault, and a hole behind it, neatly cut, no larger than a man's shoulders. On the back wall of the vault, in black paint, a single line, in Spanish. En barrio de ricachones, sin armas ni rencores, es solo plata y no amores. It translates more or less as, in a fat cat's neighborhood, without weapons and without grudges, it is only money and not love. For weeks afterwards, the Bonaerense looked for a getaway car. There was no getaway car. Then, only a few weeks after the heist, the wife of one of the gang, a man whom the Argentinian press would identify publicly as Alberto Beto de la Torre, walks into a federal police office in a quiet northern suburb of Buenos Aires. Her account,